Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to talk about unhauling books. I am someone who pretty regularly gets rid of books. I don't usually do like massive unhaulings, but with my recent bookshelf reorganization, which many of you guys have seen, you will know that I am planning on getting rid of a lot of books. They're all currently still sitting in my room. They also collapsed the other day, so I need to get rid of them soon. Also, Max from Well Done Books did a video talking about unhauling, which I will link to so that way you guys can check that one out. So it's kind of a response to that, kind of just a general discussion about how and why I unhaul books. So like I said, I pretty regularly get rid of books. Now I have these two bookshelves and my dresser, which you guys have seen. I'm not a big fan of keeping my books in my dresser. I mean, it's kind of fun, but I try to fit as much as possible onto my actual bookshelf so that way, you know, they're visible. One thing that I regularly used to do basically is just like go through my shelves as I'm either putting books onto my shelf or just like looking at them as one tends to do. If I see something where I'm just like, I don't really have strong feelings about that book anymore, I'll just get rid of it. And then as I build up a pretty decent pile, I will either take it to a used bookstore to sell, or I'll take it to Open Books, which is a local non-profit bookstore in Chicago, and they basically take books as donations and then resell them for a profit to help fund their literacy programs. So there are like a couple steps to me unhauling books. The first level is that if I read a book and I end up rating it 2 stars or less, I will almost immediately put it into my pile of books to get rid of. I'm not really super strongly interested in keeping books that I hated, and usually if I rated a book 2 stars or less, I don't like it enough to want to keep, so that means it's immediately going into that pile. Now if I rate a book 3 stars or more, I will usually end up putting that book onto my shelves and letting it almost simmer, if that makes sense. Sometimes books take time to digest or take time to really have an effect on you. So books that are like 3.5 stars are ones where I'm like, I liked it. I didn't necessarily love it a whole lot, but I enjoyed it at least. So I like to put those books on my shelves and then I'll revisit it later and see if I still have strong feelings towards that book. And by strong feelings, I mean either it's a book that I would talk about, or it's a book that I would lend out to people when people come by to ask me for book recommendations or they want to borrow books from me. I want to have books on my shelf that I enjoyed and I can remember well enough to want to give away to other people. One thing that I noticed when I was doing my reorganization is that I was going through some of my older books, like books that I read in like college, and I realized I didn't even remember the plot of them. Like I was reading the backs of the books to try to remember what had even happened in that book to figure out if I had strong feelings towards it, and clearly if I'm reading the back of the book to remember what happened, I didn't have strong feelings towards it. So I ended up getting rid of a lot of those books. A lot of the books that are left on my shelves are either books that I really love or books that I will reference again, or like I mentioned, books that I will lend out to friends. Now when it comes to buying books, I am one of those people who has just always bought a lot of books. A lot of booktubers say that once they joined BookTube, they ended up buying lots and lots of books. I always bought lots and lots of books, so joining BookTube didn't really have a strong effect on that. It just changed which books I ended up picking up. But lately I've been slowing down my purchases a lot. You may have noticed by the lack of book hauls on my channel. But that doesn't mean that I'm not buying any books whatsoever. Obviously I have plans for the new year, which you guys will hear about later when I do my 2016 goals. But right now my rules recently have just been trying to get my unread books to a certain number and then I could buy some more books, or to read a book from the library first and then purchase it in print if I really enjoyed it. Another thing that I like is if I'm traveling, I like to be buying books from local bookstores in that area because I like visiting bookstores in new cities, and then I will usually purchase something there. One thing that I did when I went to New York back in November is I actually made a list of specific books that I would be looking for, so that way if I went to a bookstore and I found that book, I would purchase that book. So that way I kind of knew ahead of time that I was going to be buying like X number of books, and I already knew ahead of time which books those were going to be. Now when it came to culling my unread bookshelf, a lot of the books that I got rid of were books that were given to me, so they weren't necessarily books that I personally was super interested in, or they were books that I maybe tried to read and wasn't really getting into, so I decided to just give them away. If I want to give them another try, I can always get it from the library later. But I only culled maybe like 10 or 15 books from my unread bookshelf. The majority of the books that I'm currently unhauling are books that I've read, and that's basically going to be my pattern, is I at least want to give them a try. I don't mind having a relatively large TBR. I mean, compared to some people who have like 200 unread books, mine's not that bad. Mine's like at 75 or so right now. But I do like having a pile of books available to me all the time in my house that I haven't read yet that I could potentially be picking up. How that'll look in the future, I'm not completely sure, but I'm sure that I will always have some unread books, or at least I have a feeling it'll go that way. Who knows, things may change. So yeah, that's basically how I deal with unhauling books. One tip that I would give to people if you want to get rid of your books is maybe go through it section by section or go through a small batch at a time. I know for me, when I was going through the reorganization, towards the end I was getting a little bit of a mental fatigue, so it was harder for me to figure out whether or not I wanted to keep books, which I think is another reason why I did the sort of like small unhaulings in the past. Just seeing a couple books here and there and then putting it to a pile to the side really made a difference, because then I would just wait for the pile to grow. I wasn't forcing myself to make any huge decisions at one time, which I think really helps. So yeah, leave a comment down below letting me know if you guys regularly get rid of your books, what you guys do with them, how you guys choose. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching.